Greetings all, and welcome to the second episode of the V.T.P, or the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. We're only on our second episode, and already we're going to be getting into a two-part episode, and it's about something that I am particularly passionate about. In this episode, we are going to take a look at the reasoning behind the coloration assigned to shiny Pokémon. Most of us are aware of what shiny Pokémon are, but for those who don't, shiny Pokémon are Pokémon that possess specific alternate colorations to them that make them distinct and unique compared to normal Pokémon. They are usually quite rare and difficult to find, and they are highly coveted by collectors for their extreme rarity. This is the only aspect of them that is truly special though, as every other aspect of them is identical to their non-shiny counterparts, but that does little to decrease their value because of how hard they can be to obtain. One of the most interesting aspects of shiny Pokémon though, is the actual colorations they take on. Some can be subtle, some vibrant, while others can be so wild and so bizarre that it gives one reason to pause in thought. While some of these color choices might look quite odd, in almost all cases, there is a method to the way that shiny Pokémon colorations are assigned, and it is the purpose of this video to give a brief introduction to the different ways in which shiny Pokémon colors are assigned, and to highlight the unique explanations behind some of your favorite shiny Pokémon. First of all, sometimes shiny Pokémon colorations are produced via simple body color swaps, where two or more base colors present in a Pokémon have had their positions on the body swapped. The members of the Togepi family are a great example of this phenomenon, additionally showing a minor change in the shade of their base white body color, which is something that will be covered shortly. In other cases, Pokémon may have their main body colors inverted on their color scale. Skarmory, whose shiny color otherwise looks very abnormal compared to its normal body color, is a good example of this method. This can go even further, as in some cases, these first two options can be combined together to really make some interesting shiny colorations. Politoed is a great example of this, as in their shiny coloration, their main body color, and the color of the swirl on their bellies, and the other yellow portions of their body have been swapped with each other, and then color inverted. The color that a shiny Pokémon takes may also be the result of a color wheel shift, or when the main color of the Pokémon is shifted from one color to an adjacent color on the color wheel, such as from red to orange or from green to blue. Keldeo is a prime example of this, as the blue parts of its body are shifted on the color wheel from blue to green in its shiny coloration. Sometimes, the change in color can be so subtle that it might not be apparent right away. In cases like this, the shiny coloration is merely a shade change, where the base colors are basically the same, just a different shade of the same base color. Shiny Pansage and shiny Simisage are good examples of this. The colors shown may also be paired in a certain way as complements to each other, though this type is fairly rare to see. Kecleon is a good example of this, as the only thing that changes is that the red band on their torso shifts to blue in their shiny coloration. And in some cases, the colors chosen can be, well, a bit odd, and might not make any sense aside from stylistic choices. While these kinds of seemingly random color transitions might not make a ton of sense, they can still produce some interesting looking shiny Pokémon, such as the blue color transition observed in shiny Blitzel, and the purple color transition observed in shiny Zebstrika. Shiny colorations can be inspired by real-world organisms and objects as well, oftentimes linked to the type of organism or object that a Pokémon might be based off of. Beedrill in both its normal and mega forms is a prime example of this, as their green shiny coloration is likely based off of the sweet bee genus Agapostemon. And lastly, in some special cases, the true reasoning behind the assignment of a shiny coloration to a Pokémon can actually be unique and distinct from these basic methods of creating shiny colorations, and taking a look into the reasoning behind their existence can help reveal some of the more unique quirks, whether it be regarding the origins of a Pokémon, past sprites and models, what they are supposed to represent, etc. I would now like to take some time to examine some cases where the choice of shiny color does have a greater meaning beyond basic color changes or their basis on a real-world organism or item, and provide you a taste of the thought and analysis that really goes into designing shiny Pokemon. First of all, it can be observed that in some cases, the shiny coloration possessed by Pokemon can be designed as a counterpart to the normal coloration of an associated Pokemon. As an example, take a look at the members of the Nidoran families. When you take a look at their normal and shiny colorations next to each other, you can see that their shiny color palettes are supposed to act as mirrors of the opposite sex at each stage of evolution, helping to unify the creatures as technically being part of the same biological family, despite the fact that not all members of each family group are capable of breeding with each other or even other Pokemon. It is noted though that in the case of Nidoqueen, things might look a little bit odd and seem to buck this trend, but its color palette can be explained by a simple body color swap between its two base colors. This same principle can be observed when looking at the Grimer family, with the different members' shiny colorations being a mirror of their Alolan variants' shiny coloration, the green portions of their bodies being swapped with purple and vice versa. It can further be seen in Volbeat and Illumise, and in the members of the Lileep family. Latias and Latios go one step further in having their shiny colors, which are basically just color wheel shifts of their normal palettes in their base forms, be effectively identical in their shiny mega forms, just as they are in their base mega forms. The only things that differentiate them are their eye colors, which are maintained from their standard shiny colors. Next up, let's take a look at some examples where gold is truly at the peak of its value and is used to represent something both symbolic and of incredible value. You ever notice how shiny Luvdisc looks gold? It shouldn't take much thought to see that this is a reference to the phrase Heart of Gold, which is a cute take on Luvdisc. Similarly, shiny Execute's gold color likely stems from the tail of the goose who laid the golden egg, though in this case, it might be a bad idea to try and sell these eggs to the highest bidder, lest you end up getting hypnotized by them. Along that same mindset, we can see that shiny Arceus is gold, which is likely a reference to the idea of a golden idol, something that is to be worshipped and adored by others as a grand deity. In some cases though, gold can also be quite deceptive and used to trick us into thinking we have something special, when it really isn't. Shiny Magikarp is a perfect example. Its golden color signifies something of great value and worth, but, well, as we all know, Magikarp are not exactly the most powerful or valuable of Pokemon out there to work with from a combat perspective. In the same way, we can carry this idea over to the members of the type Null family. While they have a shiny gold color like Arceus, it is a weaker shade of gold, meant to symbolize that they are imitations of the true idol and not the shining light that is truly meant to be worshipped. Color can sometimes also be an indication of temperature, and that of a flame that is burning, and this can definitely be said in the case of some fire-type families. The Ponyta family shows this quite plainly, as while normal Ponyta have bright red, orange, and yellow flames, their shiny form is blue, suggesting that the flames are burning at a higher temperature. Shiny Rapidash goes even further with its silver-white flames, which likely burn even hotter. This same relationship can be observed in Emboar, as while Tepig and Pignite, for the most part, represent a simple color wheel shift combined with shade changes, Emboar possess blue flames indicative of higher temperatures. Chandelure go one step further in expressing a different type of fire altogether, as while the color of the flames and eyes of Litwick and Lampent show a simple color wheel shift, in Chandelure, the flames seen switch completely from the traditional purple spectral flame color to that of a more traditional fire. Paras and Parasect share an interesting color relationship in their shiny forms that helps to symbolize their sad fate in evolution. In the case of Paras, their shiny coloration is somewhat of a color wheel shift as much as it is a shade change, going from orange to a darker reddish-orange color, almost as if they look stronger and hardier than they normally would look. Shiny Parasect, on the other hand, are a lighter shade of orange, almost yellow, compared to the normal shade of color. In a way, this looks to be representative of their sad fate and evolution, as their bodies have literally been drained of their vitality by the mushroom growing on them to the point where they are all but dead. The shiny versions of the members of the Koffing family can be a bit tricky to interpret, but indirectly, I think that there is a bit of a vile explanation behind them. For one thing, we can see that their gas is colored purple. This on its own is likely the result of a body color swap, replacing it with the purple base color they normally possess on their bodies. If that's the case though, where does the blue come from? There are two ways to look at it. If we see Koffing's original Gen 2 sprites, it comes off as a simple color wheel shift from purple to blue, matched in turn by its evolved form, Weezing. This was changed in modern iterations though, and while it is uncertain why, it can be said that, in its current state, the clay blue color of their body bears a striking and foul resemblance to the color of decaying flesh, with corpses sometimes turning blue from a combination of oxygen deprivation and decay. Tauros and normal Marowak are a bit of an odd set of specimens with their green shiny colorations, and on the surface, this might not make a great deal of sense. However, some answers can be found if you go back to Gen 1 and take a look at their yellow sprites. While Tauros is supposed to have brown hair covering their bodies and Marowak have a brown hide, in yellow, their sprites instead have a greenish tinge to them throughout. It is quite likely then that shiny Tauros and shiny normal Marowak are a reference to this abnormal color choice and the limited color options initially available in Pokemon Yellow. Did you ever take a look at shiny Kabuto and Kabutops and wonder why they are green? Or why shiny Gligar and Gliscor are blue? Interestingly enough, they are both tied together in their bases on real-world organisms, for if you actually shine ultraviolet light on horseshoe crabs and some types of scorpions, they do indeed glow these blue and green colors. It is uncertain why their real-world counterparts do this, but it may have something to do with needing to tell what time of day it is so they know when it is safe to come out and hunt for prey, since the light from the moon does contain a strong UV component to it. The members of the Dratini family are pretty straightforward for the most part, but there is an odd exception worth noting. While the shiny colorations of Dratini and Dragonair are simple color wheel shifts of blue to purple, shiny Dragonite's colors are completely different, with a dark green base body color and purple wings. On the one hand, this is a classical color combination for dragons in Western mythology, so it makes sense that the final evolution of the original dragon-type family would get a shiny coloration so classical in nature. However, it also bears a striking resemblance to the titular dragon in the Disney movie Pete's Dragon, though this is probably due to them sharing similar historical roots in their color palette. Jumpluff stand out strongly from the rest of their family in terms of what their shiny coloration likely represents. While Hoppip are supposed to look like traditional green plants, and shiny Skiploom are the result of a color inversion, shiny Jumpluff's bright pink coloration is noticeably different and unique. Rather than being a color change of any basic kind, it seems most likely that they are supposed to represent cherry blossoms with their bright pink color. Teddiursa and Ursaring tend to stick out like sore thumbs when it comes to their shiny coloration, as going from brown to green seems like an odd choice. However, there is a sneaky bit of trivia laid in here. Did you ever notice the crescent moon on Teddiursa and the ring on the bellies of Ursaring? Well, while it might be obvious for Teddiursa, the circle in Ursaring is supposed to be the moon as well, likely a new moon. You see, in olden times, there existed proverbs telling of simpletons that would stare at the reflection of the moon and mistake it for a wheel of cheese, often described as being green. Initially, this meant that it was a young cheese, not yet aged for consumption, but over time it was misconstrued to mean that the cheese was literally colored green. In turn, shiny Teddiursa and Ursaring embody this proverb in their coloration and physical association with the moon. Smeargle is a fun, unique example of both staying true to one's roots and going in the complete opposite direction. In the case of Smeargle, there are actually two separate shifts going on. On the one hand, the golden color of their shiny form is very close to that of the golden color possessed by their original Generation 2 sprites. However, on that same note, it can be observed that the color of the paint on their tail has actually swapped places. Originally, normal Smeargle had red paint on their tails while their shiny form had green paint. But as of Generation 3, those colors swapped places. In fact, it can possibly be construed that the entire color palette of the normal and shiny forms of Smeargle was swapped after Generation 2. Perhaps for the simple fact that the green painted Smeargle's color palette seems more natural for what one might expect for a canine-like Pokemon. While the shiny coloration on Seedot makes them resemble chestnuts in the richness and reddish nature of their coloration, the colors on Nuzleaf and Shiftry are far more pronounced and stick out strongly, especially with Nuzleaf. This might be seen as just an odd continuation of this chestnut color, but there may also be another explanation. Unlike Seedot, these creatures have a far more human-like form to them, as they may likely be based off of a goblin from Japanese mythology, the Tengu. As it so happens, in tradition, it is quite common to see Tengu with red faces. Though perhaps too bright of a red for an exact match, it does fit quite nicely with Nuzleaf in particular, as their face and legs are the only parts of their bodies that share this bright red coloration. Mega Gardevoir, despite the ability to be either male or female, very clearly played to a more feminine presence in their form, with their lower body resembling a flowing ball gown with their characteristic sense of beauty. While the normal and shiny sprites represent a basic color wheel shift from green to blue, as is the case for the rest of the Ralts family, shiny Mega Gardevoir is something different entirely, with a black body base present instead of remaining white with the blue color shift. With the ball gown analogy though, this makes sense, with it giving off the appearance of a black dress, perfect for the creature's strong feminine appearance. While normal Torkoal have a reddish-orange body and a coal-black shell, this changes drastically to a red shell and yellow body in their shiny form. While this can be seen as an odd color wheel shift, it makes more sense if they are going for a more volcanic theme with their shiny form, with the red shell representing red volcanic material like scoria, while their yellow bodies resemble the traditional color of crystalline sulfur, a common element found in volcanic melts. Though Lunatone and Solrock's shiny colorations might not initially seem linked, they are both unique because they both follow an astronomical theme. On the one hand, we have shiny Lunatone who, aside from a slight shade change in their main body color, are only different from normal Lunatone because of their blue eyes. If you think about it though, this is more than enough, as it serves as a simple but clever reference to the concept of a blue moon. Solrock, on the other hand, normally have an orange body, but their shiny form's main body is a bright red color. Alongside the shade change in their rocky outgrowths, and their change in eye color from red to blue, hinting at a connection between them and Lunatone, this color change makes sense, as while normal Solrock are supposed to represent the sun, shiny Solrock symbolize its ultimate fate, which is to eventually become a red giant star. They are not the only ones to share a reference to space though, as shiny Minior also have something to show, with their shiny cores being black with starry sparkles, being a reflection of the space that lies just outside of their territory, as if they were reflecting a picture of the universe beyond our planet right back at us. While there are both male and female Buneary and Lopunny, their sprites and models have always shown them to possess, well, a fairly feminine form. While it might be infuriating to some, this sort of stereotypical appearance isn't helped by the fact that their shiny forms are chocolate brown combined with pink fur, and with pink being often associated as a feminine color, well, I think it's pretty clear where the minds of the creators were when designing both the overall form of these Pokemon and their shiny colorations. The exact same thing can be said for Cutiefly and Ribombee, as they too share a very feminine pink coloration in their shiny forms. Alright, here's one that I have personally seen a lot of hate towards that I think is wholly undeserved. Garchomp. While Shiny Gible and Gabite show a basic shade change in their colorations with minor amounts of color wheel shifting, and Shiny Mega Garchomp is a massive color wheel shift from blue to a hot purple-pink color, Garchomp's standard Shiny looks pretty dull and drab, and to some, it is almost indistinguishable from its normal coloration. In truth though, the secret to its shiny coloration is right in its design. Because you know what else has a great color of about the same shade? Beasts like the Great White Shark. In hindsight, considering that the entire Gible family is supposed to have a land shark form to them, this makes perfect sense, and really helps to bring out their primary animalistic design base. You probably have noticed by now, but the fur patterns that are found on Watchog are supposed to be based off of safety vests. Well, what you might not be aware of is the fact that there exist glow-in-the-dark versions of this vest. While Shiny Patrat may just represent a shade change with their eyes being the result of a color inversion, this type of glowing safety vest is exactly what adorns the evolved form's shiny variation. Did you ever notice how the shed skin that Scrafty wears almost looks like a hoodie? Well, while Shiny Scraggy might only show shade changes, the bright green shed skin possessed by Scrafty very much brings this idea of a hoodie to life, and stands out so strongly from the yellow scale color that it seems almost certain that it was supposed to resemble one. Both Pawniard and Bisharp look very similar to each other when compared to their shiny forms, with the only obvious difference being that the red portions of their body are colored blue. On the one hand, red and blue are a good color pairing in general, but in this case, I think that there's more intent at play. As you may have noticed, Pawniard and Bisharp get their names from playing pieces in the game of chess. Well, in chess, there are two different colors to signify the two different individuals that play the game against each other, traditionally being black and white or red and white. In reflection then, choosing a stark color difference of red and blue between the normal and shiny forms of these creatures makes sense, as a way of representing the idea of them being playing pieces of different colors in the same game. The Deino family is another interesting case, where there may be more than one explanation behind their choice of shiny coloration. On the one hand, their shiny color palettes may just be a simple color wheel shift from blue to green. On the other hand though, and on a more interesting note, the colors of shiny Deino, Zweilous, and Hydreigon greatly resemble that of depictions of Slavic dragons, with this particular piece of artwork being a shining example of that association. While the members of the Swords of Justice quartet mostly have basic changes that create their shiny sprites, Terracion's is actually interesting for the sheer vibrancy of its colors. While the choice of colors is a mixture of changes made to its standard colors, what makes them distinct is the fact that the secret to Terracion's vibrant colors is right in their name. The first part of their name is likely a reference to terracotta material, which refers to unglazed, typically brownish-red earthenware. This material was chiefly used for ornamental purposes and in modeling, and as a result, it was often painted with bright, vibrant colors that contrasted with the base color of the material, very much how shiny Terracion's colors stand out strongly from the normal coloration. Helioptile and Heliolisk are pretty unique creatures for their type assignment, but their shiny form seems bizarre initially, painting a large part of their bodies a brilliant shade of red with some minor color wheel shifting in the case of Heliolisk. If you think about it though, this makes a lot of sense, for if you are out basking in the sun for too long, what are you likely to come away with? That's right, a sunburn. Good thing these creatures are used to basking in the sun, and don't have to worry about such a thing actually occurring too much. The Swirlix family is a fun one to take a good look at. With their normal coloration, these creatures look like cotton candy and colorful pastries, but in this is actually the key to understanding the secret to their shiny forms. If we take a look at their white and brown shiny forms, and the way the color is arranged on them, it hints towards another soft, chewy treat that is adored as a sweet treat by many as well: marshmallows. Specifically, it looks like they are supposed to represent toasted marshmallows, which develop an iconic brown crust to them as they are heated. The members of the Pikipek family share a unique type of color reversal in their shiny versions, though perhaps not in the manner you might be thinking. While shiny Pikipek might only show a simple shade change, in looking at shiny Trumbink and shiny Toucanon, we see that the rainbow of color that normally adorns their beaks is different, containing darker, cooler colors than the normal coloration. The reason for this, upon looking closer, is actually pretty fun to see. The colors are still part of the traditional transition of colors seen in a color wheel, but they are on the opposite end of the wheel, moving from hot pink back to purple and blue, instead of moving from red to orange and yellow. Vikavolt stand out from their family in that their shiny coloration is more reflective of the mechanical nature of their origin. While Grubbin's shiny form is just a shade change, and Charger Bugs can represent a number of things, including red batteries or a simple match to its pre-evolved form's shiny color, shiny Vikavolt possess a silver body with lime green sections on the sides of their pincers. This is likely a reference to the fact that Vikavolt are partially based off of railguns, with the green color being a color wheel shift from yellow to green, and their silver body color being reflective of those mechanical electromagnetic weapons. Passimian is another great example of shiny colorations being a reflection of what the creatures were originally based off of. These creatures' use of teamwork to take down threats is very much in line with their bases off of games like rugby, and their shiny coloration is a nice touch to this. While the bright colors don't have a serious color connection to the species' normal coloration, the fact that they are so brightly colored, plus the fact that parts of their body are now brown, including the berry they use as a weapon, harkens back to the pigskins used by and brightly colored outfits worn by not just rugby players, but also players of games like American football, existing as a nice nod towards the overall behavior and similarity with players of these games. Pheromosa, though technically genderless in the games, is another Pokemon with a clearly feminine form in mind, despite it being based off of the male of a specific type of cockroach, and its shiny sprite makes this very clear. Just as the pink coloration of shiny Buneary, Lopunny, and Mega Lopunny hints towards their feminine form, shiny Pheromosa have their lower bodies colored a deep black color. It doesn't take much thought to come to see that the point of the coloration is to make it look like they are wearing black leggings, something dominantly associated with females, even if the species doesn't have an exact gender ratio assigned to it. Celesteela is a nice example of a bit of a switcheroo in the minds of players that fail to pay close attention to their design specifics. On the one hand, the species partially resembles a rocket, and in fact may have been partially designed after the Selene spacecraft. However, what some players fail to recognize is that Celesteela are actually plants, and more specifically, they are based off of bamboo plants, with their overall form being based off of Princess Kaguya from the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. This in turn helps to explain why then their shiny color is a bright white in many places, as there is such a thing as white bamboo. And to conclude the first part of this episode, let's take a look at a personal favorite of mine, shiny Guzzlord. While they might not be that great competitively, on their own, Guzzlord are a terrifying sight to behold, and definitely not the kind of creature you want to get on the wrong side of. However, their shiny coloration, in contrast to their black and yellow base colors on the outside, is bright white and orange. While the orange color can be explained with a simple color wheel shift, the white color might seem just like an inversion of some sort, but the true reference hidden in it is much more ingenious. As surmised from their Pokédex entries, Guzzlord are effectively biological black holes, where everything goes in, but nothing ever comes out. Well, as it turns out, in physics, there is actually an opposite counterpart to black holes, which, not surprisingly, are called white holes. As you might expect, these are objects in which matter and energy is constantly spewed out and can never fall in. While they are still theoretical, and one has never actually been detected, this relationship gets a very nice nod from shiny Guzzlord, and helps to make it a much more fascinating creature. So, now you've gotten a taste of some of the more unique shiny coloration assignments given to Pokemon. But don't think that's all just yet. There are still many other unique explanations behind some shiny Pokemon, and more will be examined in the next part of this episode. So stay tuned and get ready for another round of shiny Pokemon coloration explanations. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
Yeah, no.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.